what is the qualification of Guru? So the scriptures tell us that there are, of course, many different qualifications, but the basic element is surrender to the Supreme Lord, which means the person has a very favorable attitude towards the Lord. He is performing bhakti, etc. Of course, there's different amounts of surrender, but Jiva Goswami actually mentions that one at the beginning of devotional service can surrender to the Lord and offer himself to the Lord. So, of course, we want a person who is steadily surrendering to the Lord, not just for a few seconds. But this is the main quality. He is actually a devotee of the Lord, a committed devotee of the Lord. And in India, of course, that is caste system. So it's not a matter of caste, Brahmana, Vaishya, or Kshatriya, whatever. We don't consider him on that basis. That's not the concern of a devotee to choose Guru. It is actually how he can deliver the jiva. And that is not dependent on caste or varna. It's dependent on his bhakti. So the only provision is that if one is going to take sannyasa, one must take sannyas from a sannyas person, not a grihastha. Or the equivalent, of course, in some of the Gaudiya Sampradayas is Babaji. So a Babaji gives Babaji to another Babaji, not a grihastha doesn't give Babaji initiation. And that's about the only restriction there. So, we do not choose a guru on certain wrong conceptions. That is, of course, the caste conception. He's a Brahmana, so he's better than the other guru who's maybe a Sudra birth or whatever, or Malecha birth or whatever. Or, of course, we could say Indian. If he's an Indian, he's better than a American guru or something like that. So that's not the basis of judgment. Or even under ashram, we shouldn't say that sannyasi is better than a grihastha guru. As we said, we're not considering varna or ashram here as the basis of the guru. He's surrendered to the Supreme Lord. So as we know from if we look at the Bhagavatam, we'll see that many great devotees were grihasthas, great kings. They were not Brahmins, they were kings. Ambarish was a king and he was a grihastha. He's a great devotee. So we have all sorts of persons who are devotees. Of course, we find Dhruva was, I guess, a brahmachari and he saw the Lord, whatever. So we have people in all stages of life who become great devotees, regardless of ashrama or varna. And seniority, usually, of course, we expect if a person is older, then he's wiser and he has more devotion because he's practicing longer. But it's not necessarily so. So we'll find someone who's very qualified when they're very young. Sukadev was young, and yet he was respected by all the ancient sages like Vyasadeva and Narada Muni when he came into the assembly to speak to Parikshit Maharaj. So he was younger, much younger, but he was respected by everyone because of his great realization. So, again, we cannot go by the physical appearance of the person if he's handsome or whatever. That's not the qualification of a person. Or if he dresses nicely, or if he has lots of money. He's very wealthy. In ISKCON, if he's a big zone, he's a better guru than if he's a small zone or no zone. If he's a GBC, he's a better guru than one with no zone. That's not a consideration again. Or if he has many disciples. Simply because he has many disciples, that doesn't make him a better guru than someone who has one disciple. So we see Gorkishore only had one disciple. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. But he was a great devotee of the Lord. So, we don't judge based on externals and material factors at all. That's a surrender. And we also we shouldn't project upon the Guru unreasonable claims that my Guru is a Nitya Siddha. He came from the spiritual world and is a Nitya Siddha or whatever. Or that he's an Uttamadhikari, whereas everyone else is Madhyamadhikaris or Kanishtadhikaris or whatever. Or that he is preaching Raganuga, everyone else is preaching Vaidhi Bhakti, like this. So we shouldn't make some false projections to make one's own guru superior to all the other gurus. So one should respect the guru because he gives proper teachings in the Sampradaya. And he practices what he preaches. He's attracted to chanting Krishna's names. That's Nam Sankirtan. and within ISKCON, he is loyal to ISKCON. He respects all devotees. He cooperates with all ISKCON authorities. So, this is more particularly for ISKCON as well. So, these are some of the standards that we can respect a person for. So, in ISKCON, we have Guru. That's kind of a position, a spiritual position or a spiritual service. But we often confuse that with an actual official managerial post. The Guru has the authority to do whatever he wants in ISKCON, like a managerial authority. In other words, he has full powers like a GBC or a president or whatever, even though technically he doesn't have those powers. So we shouldn't confuse the two roles. As a guru, he's giving spiritual instructions, he's giving deity mantras. That's what he's doing. And it doesn't automatically give him the privilege of moving manpower around at his whim without consulting other authorities like temple presidents or GBCs, or to have separate funds which he allots for his own projects which are independent of the GBC or any other authority. So that's taking managerial authority in the hands of a guru. So he shouldn't do that. So his authority is spiritual instructions. That's what he's doing. Now, he, of course, in ISKCON we do have gurus who are also GBCs or also temple managers or regional secretaries, etc. Okay, fine. But in himself, the guru, acting as a guru, is giving teachings. That's what he's doing, inspiring people spiritually. That's all. And though he may have disciples, then he should not think, these are my disciples and I do what I want with them and don't listen to anybody else. That's he's involving himself in managerial affairs there. That's particularly, of course, we have temples and we have devotees in temples. So then he feels, I'll take my devotees in this temple and put them in that temple without consulting anybody. So that creates a lot of confusion, a lot of disturbance. So that shouldn't be done. So it has to be done very carefully, considering the managerial structure of ISKCON. So things should be coordinated with the local authorities and with the GBC, etc. Now, if a guru is also a GBC, we should not confuse these two roles. Now, it becomes problematic because there is technically a conflict of interest. Because the guru is a spiritual post only, whereas the managerial authority is something, he is also spiritual, but he's also got a managerial role. So, a guru could use his post as a manager and exploit that position on the authority of being a guru. In other words, he tell people to do managerial things because on the authority of being the guru, the spiritual authority like that. So, people should keep these two roles separately, especially the disciple, because managing things and managerial decisions may not always be perfect. There may be faults there. So if the guru makes a decision as a GBC, which is a mistake, then the disciples think, oh, my guru's making all sorts of mistakes there, he's not qualified as a guru. So divide the roles. One is GBC, I can make mistakes there. Guru, okay, he's giving instructions, spiritual instructions, fine. Keep the roles separate. So if there is some fault, there may be some fault in management, fine, that's one thing. But that should not detract from the person's role as a guru. Maybe he shouldn't be a GBC if he makes too many mistakes. But anyway, he can still function as a guru. So we shouldn't disrespect him because of the mistakes made in the managerial sphere. So we have these two authorities. The spiritual authority. Guru could be a Dikshit guru. Usually that's how it is in ISKCON. It could be a Shiksha guru also. And it could be someone who's not a guru at all, maybe a sannyasi or some other authority that we have great allegiance to because of their spiritual standing. And then we have the other authority, which is the official managerial authority, which is also not simply material, it's also spiritual, because Prabhupada said, ISKCON's my body. So it's part of Prabhupada's instruction. So it is a spiritual managerial line. So that consists of course, the GBCs, regional bodies, and regional secretaries, national councils, temple presidents, and then under that we have the disciples who may live in a temple, and then we have congregations, etc. So there's some sort of authority there, authority line, officially. So the two authorities can cooperate very nicely together, but the guru and the disciple should not think they're kind of independent of that structure and do things separately. Okay? They should cooperate because everybody's within ISKCON. So therefore, there has to be a relationship with this managerial authority somewhere on the line, whether it's through the GBC or the temple president or whatever, somewhere there has to be some relationship between that guru and his disciples to keep them within ISKCON. There is a last GBC meeting, I think it was, there's a little paper made up called the different lines of authority, harmonizing the lines of authority in ISKCON. So that's basically the subject. How the gurus and the managerial authorities should cooperate together. Because if they don't, then we can end up with a lot of independent bodies within ISKCON doing their own thing, let's say 500 years from now, where everybody's separate, not listening to the GBC, and they have their own little guru lines going on by themselves. So we have to prevent that in ISKCON and keep some unity by some adherence to the cooperation between the two authorities.